Well, good evening and welcome to Space Oddities. I hope you're all well and enjoying the weather at the moment, wherever you are. I'd like to say good evening to the Space Oddities panel. So tonight we've got Daz. How are you, Daz?
Lovely, thank you. I just had a bit of a panic. I was just checking YouTube and I couldn't hear a thing coming through, but then I realised I had the lapel mic shoved in my ear, not me earphones.
give him a boy a man's job. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a bit rough here weather-wise, but yeah, we'll survive. We'll survive.
Good, glad to hear it. Welcome back, Pete. How are you, Pete?
Okay, not too bad. Been away for a little while due to
my internet isn't though. I lost.
Where's Keith's vanished again.
And giving me disconnect.
Oh, Keith is having a communication problem.
Yeah, you see, this is it.
Oh dear.
Okay.
I think the weather's affecting Keith.
Yeah, Keith has got a really bad storm coming in, this latest storm where he is. So he's a bit intermittent at the moment. We will try and establish regular contact with him, but we hope that he stays with us. Sorry, Pete, you were saying?
Yeah. So no, it's nice to be back. Been away with a bit of a chest infection, and then today I kind of got rope. I'm not going to say who with it just as yet, but I got roped back into out of retirement, back into work for an astrophysics department. Funny thing was, just before I retired, my last project I was working on was working on the Mars rover. I was processing some of the images for NASA and what have you. And now today I've been building a Lego Mars rover. So that's the height of my excitement.
Wow. I didn't even know they did a Lego Mars rover.
I didn't. Somebody had one for Christmas, so I thought I've got to have one of them. So I'm building it now.
Do they do a Lego ISS as well?
Yeah, that looks Lego-y, but the Mars rover doesn't look so Lego-y. But the thing was, it says from ages 5 upwards. And it took me about 4 hours to work out how to open the first bloody
packet. Kiddie proof.
Yeah, I worked the real Mars rover, but don't give me a Lego one. I'm knackered.
That was 5 Jovian years. You have to read the
Yeah. So, welcome to Roger down in deepest, clearest Sparkford. How are you doing?
Cloudy.
Cloudy, is it?
Cloudy.
Yeah, cloudy.
Wow. No, that can't be right.
No, it's not right.
Jolly good. Welcome, Roger. Hi, Michael.
Hi there.
Michael, give us a flash of your thumb. Michael has injured himself, as you can see.
I won't go into it, but just like to say I've just completed yet another revolution around the sun. 63 of them now.
God, you don't look a day over.
Yeah.
I can't be bothered to do the maths this time of night.
Yeah, he's telling lies. He's carbon dated. He doesn't do.
We wish you all a very belated happy birthday, Michael.
Thank you.
What did you do on your birthday? Anything exciting?
I spent
or should we ask?
Spent it with somebody.
Don't give names.
You old floozy. So there we are. Well, anyway, we hope your thumb gets better soon.
And me.
And but you look an ideal person to work as a policeman, sort of stopping the traffic with that hand.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, or thumbing a lift, as somebody said.
Yes, that's right. Instant professional hitchhiker. So there we are. We also welcome all the way from the US our friend Lou. How are you, Lou?
I'm doing well. I am inching ever closer to giving Roger's astro photos a good and long overdue thrashing.
Ooh, fighting
We will see what the near future holds here.
Okay, well done. Now that's a challenge, isn't it? It's a game on.
He hasn't seen my picture in the gallery tonight yet.
Oh,
no.
Well, he says
the bar again, are we?
Right. Just a bit.
He says it's his, Lou. So anyway, and last but not least, we welcome Keith, whose connection seems to be stable at the moment. So how are you doing, Keith? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can now.
Good.
I don't know what happened. It suddenly got better. somebody's plugged something in somewhere, I think.
Oh, your neighbours unplugged
Oh.
their 24-hour streaming.
Yeah, it'll be something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's hope it persists because Keith is the star turn tonight, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to be doing a couple of
His presentations.
a couple of presentations. So we're really hoping his connection stays up. If not, we'll have to improvise. I'll take the banjo.
Actually, it looks like they've stayed on, so we're all right. I think we can go. Yeah.
Great, fantastic.
If you can just upload your presentations
you
again,
need
please,
to upload your presentations again, Keith.
Well, I've just clicked on them and they popped up on the left-hand side of my screen. So
they're there. Yeah, they're there. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, we use those. That's good. That's good. We have them. That's
Can I just add that if anybody's typing in any messages to me on the public chat, I can't see that. So hi to everybody on the public chat. I can't answer you, but hi.
Why can't you see them, Keith? Pete, sorry.
My laptop won't run the two things at once for some reason.
Oh, that's strange. You need a new laptop, mate.
It is a brand new laptop with Windows 11. That's the thing.
You need something better than a Lego laptop.
Oh, that was a problem.
I can see them, but I can't reply. There's no button for me to reply on.
Oh, I don't know. So apologies. Anyway. We will get these issues ironed out eventually. So there we are. Anyway, so tonight we've got two presentations from Keith. One is about astro frauds, which sounds interesting. And the other one is an incomplete history of space art. So we hope you'll stay with us for that. Let me just see who we've got in this evening. All I see is the panel. Oh, hi, Jerry. Hi, Astro Nebulae. Hi, Kev. Hi, Jerry. Again, Sandra's here. Hi, Sandra. Hope you're okay. Enjoying the weather. Anne's here. Hope you're okay, Anne. You and me.
Stormy Dublin.
Stormy Dublin. Yeah. Well, I won't tell you what the weather's like here. So that would only depress you. So anyway, we'd like to thank you as always for keeping us in coffees. So if you would like to buy Space Oddities a coffee to help us keep the show running, you can do so by clicking or scanning this link to buy a coffee. Any support is much appreciated because it does help us keep the show on the road. And there we are. Don't forget the Space Oddities merchandise is available. We have T-shirts and hoodies. Unfortunately, due to an increased charge to us from our suppliers, we've had to put the prices up of the merchandise a little bit. Otherwise, we wouldn't make anything on them. And all the money does go to keep Space Oddities running. So the Space Oddities T-shirts are now available. 10 colours are available. These are retailing now for £20, but that does include UK postage and packing, so it's a really good deal. And the links to these are in the description. And, summer's coming up very soon, honestly. And you are going to look fantastic in a Space Oddities T-shirt on your street. And get them before they run out with all the demand I'm sure we're going to have leading up to summer. We've also got available the Space Oddities hoodie. This retails for £40, but again, it does include UK postage and packing. We've got two designs available. Over the head, where the design is on the front.
There we are.
And there we are. Daz is actually modelling, if that's the correct verb. And we've got the zipper type, which obviously having a zip down the front doesn't have the design on the front. The design is on the back, so you can take your pick. Details of how to order these are, as well as these QR codes, details are in the description of this video. So there we are. Set a trend. Wear some Space Oddities merch. We hope to have some different types of merch available soon. We're discussing that at the moment. So we'll keep you posted on that. Also, very, very important for us is if you could just remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on the video afterwards. That would be much appreciated because it helps the YouTube algorithm see us and recommend our videos to anybody who thinks might be interested. Such people do exist, believe it or not. And that really does help if you like and subscribe to the channel. You can click the notification bell so that you know when we post new videos. And if you could leave a comment on the video after it's posted, then that will be appreciated too. So that's just the housekeeping out of the way. We're going to move straight away, in time-honored tradition, to a man who always seems to know what's going on in the night sky, and his name is Roger. So, Roger, what's going on this week in the sky?
Well, we will be finding out very shortly. And we're almost concluding January by next week. So first month out of the way, but never mind. So we're up to a full moon on Thursday. And if you're in North America, that will be also known as a wolf moon. This is what it looked like last night when I had a brief spell of clear skies. So same thing every month, as Pete likes to harper on, right? But through the week at I've only got this early in the evening, so there we are. So 2 hours ago, this is what the sky looked like. And we've got Jupiter still dominating brightly, and obviously around about 11 o'clock it will be superseded by the Great Orion constellation. And obviously we will be getting interference with the moon being full on the Thursday, but nevertheless we still have Jupiter in the night sky. But just before sunrise, we've got Venus, and if you're very, very lucky and can spot it in the glare of the forthcoming sunrise, you might spot Mercury. Mars is a bit too close now to see it all, really, so we'll give that a miss. But Venus is still shining away quite nicely. And if you're still interested in the comets, we've still got Ponsbrook's coming through and leaving Cygnus, but not too bad. Quite bright. It's still brightening up. Still brightening up. So still a good opportunity. Although this one, Comet Kushida, which is entering through Taurus, is notably dimmer. As you can see here, it's magnitude 13. So some good optics needed to be able to see that at any chance available.
Daz, didn't you get an image of it? Is that the one you got an image of?
Yeah, I got an image of it.
You can see it in the gallery. Hang on.
Okay.
We do have some interesting images from the James Webb, and it's been trying to designate some shapes of galaxies in the dim far distance of its limits, and getting some quite interesting shapes to classify. These are artist's impressions, but as you can see, we're getting different shapes now, but should be interesting how on earth some of these can be created.
They've been
collate and oblate.
Yeah, they've been asking. You know, the problem has been with all these early galaxies that how can they be so well formed so early in the universe's history? And they think now, I was reading this week, that it's all down to mergers. That the galactic mergers in the early universe were happening far more often than anybody thought. And this is helping to build galaxies in the same way that our own Milky Way galaxy was probably built up from collisions between smaller galaxies. So,
now hang on there.
Oh, hang on. What's Lou saying?
Contention.
If that was true, we should see a large number of irregular galaxies in the early universe.
Which we do. Look at these.
But we also see a fair number of well-formed spirals, right? Don't we? Isn't that what James
that's
Webb
true.
is? So I don't. So maybe both can be true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Now, I presume the prolate is not a pot noodle down below. It's a pool noodle.
It's macaroni.
Is it? Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But here are some images that James Webb has managed to try and classify. Some interesting spiral arms. It's like a double arm on the bottom left there.
Yeah, certainly is.
So obviously, perhaps mergers have sort of caused these effects rather than naturally forming like we currently see.
Time will tell.
Yes. Right. We've got a big gallery this week because we had quite a few left over from last week. So buckle up and enjoy the show. But before I proceed, we've got the annual Astronomy Photographer of the Year, which is held by the Royal Greenwich Museum, and it's open until the 5th of March entries. There is a £10 admission fee, but you can put up to 10 images. Just have a look on the website. Should you fill up to the challenge of competing with fabulous astrophotographers around the country and around continents. So it should be quite an interesting thing to see. I've registered, but I don't know whether I might put anything in. We'll see.
I just had a thought, Roger.
Have you? Ooh.
Yeah, honestly, this could be the showdown between you and Lou. Who gets the furthest in the competition?
Right. Okay.
Guys, I gotta go. I gotta go work on my equipment.
Okay.
The gauntlet is thrown.
Now we've got a few left over from David Garside.
Thank you, Dave.
I've managed to get some more information from him on what he used to get these images. And as you can see, he's from Manchester, so he's got a Bortle 7 Sky to struggle with.
Wow.
So here we are. We've got
very nice.
Jupiter.
Very nice, Dave.
That's good.
And we've got a nice one of the Eastern Veil from him as well.
Wow.
Wow.
That's more like it.
That's not bad for Manchester.
Nice bit of structure on that.
Yeah,
that's lovely.
It really is.
Well
Very
done,
nice.
Dave.
Okay, and then his next one is the Pac-Man.
Equally. That's great.
Interesting.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. That's great.
Roger, you better hope Dave doesn't enter the contest because I think he's
and another one from Dave of the Andromeda. Couldn't quite get it all in, but work in progress. You got a lot of detail in the dust lanes there.
Definitely. Look
Yeah,
at
that's lovely. That is, yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay, well done. And I think this might be the last one from Dave. And you thought about me putting up lots of images in.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is this?
Got a nice close-up of the rosette there.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Lovely
Well done,
colours.
Dave.
Lovely colours.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well done.
Those from a Bortle 7, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Right, and we've got some from Sonia.
Oh, hi,
This is
Sonia.
with the Z from the C Star 50.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
Right.
Man.
We've got most of the cigarage at, work in progress. Well done. And then we've got another one of the rosette.
One of the rosette.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Maybe you can spot your observatory for a sea star.
I have some friends who just bought one, and I'm wondering where I'm spending all this money on the observatory.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, and here's one from Daz of that comet with a sea star.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
There
And
it is.
that was considering how dim it is. That was 5 minutes of
Right.
stacking.
Yeah.
That was so.
Okay.
It does it all for you. The only thing I did do is I just sort of like actually on the phone itself, because it's operated by the phone, is just enhance the color a little bit and then just put some contrast in to get darken the sky again.
That's nice.
But I was really surprised at how well this came out. Because I was going to try Pond's Brook, but unfortunately at the moment that's in the northwest, early in the early doors. So it's trying to catch it before it disappears behind the trees. So but we'll give it a go.
Anyway, done very well there, Daz.
Thank you very much.
well.
And the moon and Jupiter peeking out of the clouds.
That was
got a rainbow effect there with the through the light there.
Yeah, and that was done on the phone. It was just peeking through the clouds. I couldn't see all this colouring really, but once I took the photograph, as you can see, you can just see the moon through the clouds. You can see Jupiter, but then I had all this the rainbow effect coming through. So it was really the little green dot in the bottom's some a flare or something on the
a lens flare.
Yeah. So, but
I
thought it just looked spectacular.
Yeah.
Right, and Rachel and Johnny with the horse head. She does like the horse head.
Yeah, this is stunning. That is stunning.
Wow,
that is amazing.
I mean, if you look at just above the horse head, you can see the gas being blown away. Being swept away. It's absolutely gorgeous.
I'm blown away by that image, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Rachel and Johnny, that's fantastic.
She does like her horsey head.
Yeah.
Now that one needs to be entered in the competition, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If I were there, I'd enter that in the competition.
Oh, definitely.
No. Give the rest of us poor people a chance, I say.
That would look good on a t-shirt.
Right. Okay, so we've got one from Lee, which is a wide field shot of Orion over Green Lane de la Bowl in December.
Oh, that's nice.
There we are. Yes,
I do like starscapes.
Beautiful, Lee.
Very nice.
Beautiful.
Okay, and one from Jerry. Oh, it's a horse head.
I
think we've got a theme going on here this week.
Yeah. Definitely the horse head.
Look at
Lovely.
that.
wow.
That is
Very
good.
nice.
Is it my imagination, or is ZWO kind of dominating the imaging field here?
Well,
It's getting that way.
it is, isn't it?
And another horse head.
Oh no!
I'm afraid so. But this is only just a black and white HA image. I've yet to put the rest of it in. But,
Wow.
That is so
It's still
spectacular.
pretty nice.
That is amazing, Roger.
That's 2 hours and 20 minutes so far.
That is so spectacular.
But I want to try and get about 5 hours of each of the narrow bands and the luminance as well. So
I like the way you presented that on an angle, Roger.
Yeah.
Do it wonky, unlike everybody
Was
else.
that a criticism, Michael? Were you having a go?
No, I was putting my artistic comment on.
Right.
Autistic.
Anyway. Oh, right. And that concludes the gallery for this week.
Thank you very
That
much.
was a good gallery.
Listen,
There we are.
I mean, we've had some fantastic ones there, haven't we? And
Certainly have.
just unbelievable how good your images are, viewers. We're always blown away by them, and
yes,
as we say repeatedly, they are rivaling what you see from much bigger observatories.
Yeah, I was thinking more ideas for t-shirt artwork.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Good idea. We'll put our heads together about that and come up with some merch. Yeah, definitely. Daz, I'd like to ask you a question about the Sea Star, if I may.
Yes, mate.
What's the alignment process with it? What do you have to do?
Well, basically, when you first open the box, I did think about doing a little sort of like skit. I probably still will. First of all, you have to connect it. You connect to the internet, and then you download all the information that comes into the Sea Star.
Yeah.
And then that only takes about 10-15 minutes at the most. But once it's all set up, it takes literally, once you've got used to the controls, which don't take long at all, because basically it shows you which buttons to hit, because they're big red buttons, so that's the one you hit.
Yeah.
You basically you put it out, you make sure it's level, and you can do that by again through the phone. if there is a problem, then you just go onto the phone, go to leveling. You got 2 circles, and then you adjust the legs to bring the circles together.
Right.
As long as it's within 3 degrees, it will work. And then once you've done that, once it's aligned, you choose what you're going to. You've either got a choice of targets that they know are actually in the sky at the time.
Yeah.
And then what you do is you do an alignment, which takes about 4 or 5 minutes. It chooses 3 or 4 stars, aligns on it, and then once it's ready, you just hit the go button, the go-to button. It'll go to the target you've chosen, and it'll start taking images straight away. It takes about once you've got used to it, it takes about sort of like 5-10 minutes at the most.
Right.
It's very quick, very quick.
Right.
Basically, it's a 2-step process. Step 1, press this button. Step 2, don't touch anything else.
Yeah. The only thing is you have to stand there. One trick I have learned already, and I don't know why it was doing it, because it does track for you. This is why you can do. I think you can do. It's up to 30 seconds. But you choose what each image, how long it's going to be. And then what it'll do is you can either have, I think it's 15, 20 or 30 seconds. And then what happens is it will track on that. But of course, if you've got 30 seconds, if it tracks during that, I found that you might get some star streaks. So what I was listening for is it would be stacking away. I reduced it to 20 seconds, and it was stacking away, and you can see it come up. It gets brighter and brighter and brighter as it stacks them. But if I hear it move, I cancel that image, and then I go back. What it'll do is it'll take that picture, it'll put it away, it'll put it on your phone, and then you go back to it. And what you do is then when you come back to the image, it says restart or resume or restart. I hit the restart, and it starts taking the images again, and it restarts from the previous image. So that way, it gets rid of the star streaks.
Yeah.
But it's just listening for that if it just moves.
Yeah.
But you can go sort of like 5 or 6 shots.
Everything's controlled from the phone app, isn't it?
Yeah, from the phone app or on a pad. You can have it on a pad. But
you can.
Pete's got one.
Yeah, I tried one out for a couple of dealers. They wanted me to test it, and I hated using the phone because my eyesight, I can't see the bloody phone. And so I found out that if you get an Android emulator for your laptop or computer, you can run it off there.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's a very easy process then.
Yeah, and like I say, with if you've got a newish phone, the photo app's in there. You can just pop it into the app and then do literally minor, a bit of contrast, a bit of bring the color out a bit, and that's it. That's all you do. And you saw the images there. I mean, I haven't taken them out and put them in PixInsight or anything like that. And you've got the image. So as we said before, for outreach, it's absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely amazing for outreach. But what you can do is if you keep taking multiple images and get loads and loads of data and save it to the C-Star, you can download. I think I tried one of the Orion Nebula, about 2,000 images into PixInsight, stack them and process them. So it's it's as good as a 50mm scope.
Yeah. See, I've got it. I've got them saved to the C-Star, and I've got to download them.
And you can do videos of the sun and videos of the moon, and then use auto stack it.
I mean, for the sun and the moon, it's really sharp. I mean, you can see with the sun, you can see sunspots, and when you zoom in, you can see the umbra and the penumbra. The little brown bits around the side. So it really does bring out the detail. And the moon is fantastic.
Yeah.
So when you say that you saved your images to the C-Star, I presume it has some sort of battery backup for the memory while it's switched off.
Yeah. It just saves it to a hard disk, a static hard drive inside the C-Star. Then you plug it in plug the cable in your laptop, and just pull.
It
all
tells
the
you how
images
much
over.
you've got in there, so
Right.
you get plenty of warning if you need to. But it's just something that's so simple, and people have been taking them off, and they've been doing the processing themselves, and they've come out with some really fantastic images.
Yeah, those ones that Kath Adams has
Yeah.
the sun and the moon are amazing.
I mean,
I
on the
think
other on the other side of the coin now is Celestron have released the Origin.
But that's much more expensive, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
that's
$4,000.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's more professional end. But it's
Yeah.
doing what the Sea Star does with a much better telescope and a bigger
Right, yeah.
telescope,
Yeah.
obviously.
I mean,
So,
we did see. Yeah, sorry.
I have
Well,
tested
yeah,
it
carry on, Pete.
and tested one just to test it on on one object, and it's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. We did see one drawback on that, and that was with Sonia's picture. She only had half the cigar galaxy. It is a small field of view,
Right.
and so if you want to do sort of like a starscape, you'd have to do panels and then stack
Right.
them and put them together
Yeah.
in a thing. But no, other than that, it's absolutely stunning. It's a stunning piece of kit. It really is so simple.
I mean, everybody's saying so. So where they are. All right, let's move on. I think it's time we did the news. So there have been a few things in the news this week. Let's have a look. Here we are. Here's the news for this week. Just give me 1 second while I set this up. Okay, so what's been in the news this week? Really interesting discovery. A ring of galaxies that is raising some very interesting questions for cosmology. Cosmology, as you probably know, viewers, is the study of the history and large-scale structure of the universe. This was a chance discovery, and what it is this ring of galaxies. Now, why is that interesting? Well, first of all, it's in a ring, but it's 1.2 billion light years across, and it lies some 9 billion light years from the Earth. And that is a huge structure, 1.2 billion light years across. It is just an astronomical stone's throw from the giant arc, which is a giant arc of galaxies, bigger, 3.3 billion light years long, but lying at about the same distance. Now, why does these pose problems for cosmology? Cosmology has one of its basic principles is that the universe is homogeneous. That is to say, whichever direction you look in the universe, the concentration of matter should look the same in all directions. In other words, although you have sort of local clumpiness in the form of galaxy clusters, over large volumes of space, that should average out so that no matter what direction you look in, the density of matter should be the same. Structures this large should simply not exist in the universe according to that tenet of cosmology. And the fact that they do exist is causing consternation in the cosmological community, because at the moment we just can't explain this. Even more interestingly, that ring of galaxies turns out not to be a ring at all. In fact, if you looked at it in 3D, it would be more like a corkscrew. So this structure is very weird to start off with. The fact that it's in such close proximity to the giant arc must mean that the two, well, surely must mean that the two are related in some way. And at the moment, there are a lot of cosmologists and astronomers and astrophysicists scratching their heads over this one, because this is not understood at all well. Okay. So next, there was a bit of a fright last week because contact was lost with the Ingenuity helicopter on Mars during its 70-second flight. It was descending after yet another successful flight, and suddenly contact was lost with the Perseverance rover. And nobody knows why that happened, but I'm happy to report that since I actually created this presentation, contact has now been re-established with the helicopter. So obviously NASA are trying to work out what went wrong and how to avoid it in the future. But Perseverance is back in contact with its old mate, the Ingenuity helicopter. Don't forget, this was the first attempt to fly a powered aircraft on Mars. It was meant to, they thought it would last about 5 flights, and it's just completed its 72nd. So another example of amazing engineering from NASA. This is the little helicopter that just refuses to die. So there we are. Now, next, Meerkat has discovered a mysterious mass gap object in the Milky Way. I have to say, Meerkat is the name of a telescope in South Africa. You shouldn't read that as a meerkat. It discovers a mysterious mass gap object in the Milky Way. Of course, Meerkat is a precursor to the Square Kilometre Array, which will be the world's largest radio telescope, covering a square kilometre in total. Half of it in the low frequency range in Western Australia, and the high and mid frequency range dishes, like the ones you see here, in South Africa. The project is due for completion about the end of this decade. It will be something in the order of 1,000 times more sensitive than the world's biggest radio telescope at the moment, which is in China, the FAST radio telescope. What's it discovered? Meerkat has made many amazing discoveries, including a whole horde of the mysterious fast radio bursts. But this time it's discovered something different. What it's discovered is an object that seems too heavy for the heaviest neutron stars and too light for the lightest black holes. Now, between about 2.1 and 5 solar masses, there's this mysterious grey area that's called the mass gap, and we don't know what population of objects, what type of objects sit in that gap, but there is a definite cutoff between about 2.5 solar masses and 5 solar masses, which is the lightest black hole that's ever been found. We don't know what this object is. It could be the most massive neutron star yet discovered, or it could be the lightest black hole ever discovered. If the upper estimate is correct to 2.7 solar masses, that's a monster of a neutron star, which really shouldn't exist. But on the other hand, a black hole with only 2.7 times the mass of the sun is something that isn't considered to be likely either. So what this mysterious object is in the Milky Way obviously will be the subject of much further study. It was discovered by astronomers using Meerkat in South Africa, by astronomers at the University of Manchester, and it actually orbits another object. It orbits a millisecond pulsar, which is a pulsar spinning incredibly fast. The fastest millisecond pulsar ever discovered rotates at 747 times a second. And as I said, it's between 2.1 and 2.7 solar masses, and therefore is in the mass gap. So I'll bring you more news on that when and if astronomers figure out exactly what that mysterious object is. Now, when I say to you, what is a galaxy? You would probably say, well, it's a collection of stars. Well, that is no longer the definition of a galaxy. Thanks to a recent discovery, J0613 plus 52, this is a galaxy that doesn't have any stars in it. It just consists of gas. Now, in this illustration, the parts of the galaxy that are moving towards us are in red, and the parts of the galaxy that are receding from us are in blue. This is a galaxy with no stars. So the definition has to go out the window, I'm afraid. And why has it got no stars? Well, what astronomers have noticed with this peculiar object, which again was discovered quite by accident when they were looking for something else, and they basically pointed the telescope in the wrong direction and found this. What they think is, firstly, this is very, very gas rich. It's got a lot of gas in this galaxy, but it hasn't produced any stars. And what astronomers think is that that gas is too diffuse to form concentrations dense enough to actually give birth to stars. So you just end up with a galaxy of gas, which is quite surprising. So now you know a new definition of a galaxy. It can or cannot have stars. Really strange. Congratulations to China for launching their Einstein X-ray telescope last week. Everything appears to be going well. This is a mission led by the Chinese Academy of Sciences, but they have collaborated with the European Space Agency and the Max Planck Institute for Extraterrestrial Physics. We desperately need another X-ray telescope in orbit because the existing generation of X-ray telescopes we have are getting rather old in the tooth and are probably going to expire before too long. It's going to answer questions like how common are black holes, how do they swallow matter, and what powers their incredible jets, what kind of events produce gravitational waves and how, and it's going to investigate exactly what happens when stars go supernova, all in X-rays, of course. And the launch went well, and the telescope is now in orbit. We look forward to results from the Einstein X-ray telescope. So well done, China. It uses a really interesting detector called a lobster eye. Now, several types of crustacean, including lobsters and, as here, the mantis shrimp, if you look at their eyes very closely, they're divided into little boxes, and each box is slightly angled so that it points in a different direction. And what this does for the mantis shrimp and lobsters gives them an incredibly wide field of view, because all those thousands of images all coming from slightly different directions, the brain of the crustacean is able to focus those into a single image, and it gives it an incredibly wide field of view. And they've replicated that for the Einstein X-ray telescope. This type of optics is called Schmidt optics, and it gives an incredibly wide field. So this is an X-ray telescope that will be able to survey a large part of the sky at the same time. So again, this is science mimicking nature with the Lobster Eye Optics. Interesting stuff. Now, what have we got? Unfortunately, the Japanese moonlander now has a slim chance of success.
Oh dear.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm afraid this is a bit of a sad story. The Japanese moonlander landed on the moon. There was no doubt about that, but then couldn't generate any power. And what they think may have happened is that it rolled over, and its solar panels pointing away from the sun. It had enough battery power to last for 40 hours. I haven't heard anything new about this in the last several days. It went very, very quiet. I don't know whether any of the panel have heard any.
They did. I did see one report that they have managed to get some charge into it, so it may be a case that it's not actually led on its back, because you can see all the solar panels are on the top.
Yeah.
But it may be on a steep slope. But
Right.
it's either that or it's tipped on its side. Because they reckon it was traveling horizontally too fast when it came in. So, because it was using the technology, as I said, it was sort of like face recognition technology, and that was where the pinpointing of it was going to come in. But it did get to launch 2 of its rovers because they were launched before it landed. Yeah.
Yes. But presumably, if Slim itself isn't generating any power, they won't be able to communicate with it.
Yeah. So they reckon it probably will die on us, but they're going to use the rovers as much as they can. One's a little hopping rover, which jumps like a frog, and one's a little transforming rover. It's a little ball which can change shape, so to deal with different obstacles. So they have got some technology going on there. Whether or not it's communicating through the main lander, I'm not sure, but
but I would think so, wouldn't you? They wouldn't have enough power to transmit.
Yeah, they're only very small. This is not very big at all.
No, that's right. That's right. Well, commiserations, Japan. But I was reading, a quote by the guy in charge of the project, and he was totally nonplussed by it. He said, "Look, space is hard. We'll just try again." So, so there you are. Okay, now moving on. Just a couple of things. Firstly, Astro Dog. If you would like to go stargazing in the Delby Forest, which is in the North York Moors National Park, Astro Dog would love to be your host. They run frequent stargazing sessions with some great instruments and people to guide you through the night sky if you're inexperienced. I've put the dates up here for February. As you can see, they're doing a lot of sessions this month, and they start at different times. if you would like more information to buy tickets, you have to buy tickets for this, obviously, so that they can get it organised in advance. And if you're interested in going stargazing under the, well, I don't know if it is at the moment, but certainly the potentially clear skies of the North York Moors National Park, you should visit www.astrodog.co.uk. I've also got news of a brand new astronomy society in Ireland, the Boyne Valley Astronomical Society, and they have set up for people in the area and outside the area, obviously, but especially for the Boyne Valley, where it's fantastically clear. They charge a membership fee of only €15 per year, so this is a fantastically cheap way of joining an astronomical society. They're holding a winter star party at Aldridge House on the 10th of February. It was postponed from, I think, last week because of bad weather. Let's hope it's clear for them on the 10th of February. And that will be between 3 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the morning. You have to get a ticket for this, I'm afraid. And if you would like to take part, then visit their Facebook page on Facebook, which is Boyne Valley AS, all one word, Boyne Valley AS. And if you find that, or just search for Boyne Valley Astronomical Society on Facebook, you'll find it. We at Space Oddities would like to wish the Boyne Valley AS all the very best for the future. It's always fantastic to see a new astronomical society start up. So, guys, we'd like to wish you all the very best for the future. And we hope that your stargazing events, A, go well, and B, you'll let us know what's happening so we can publicise them here for you. And that brings us to the end of the news, guys. So,
just a couple of points. Chris O'Riordan says on the Sea Star, there's no polar alignment on Sea Star, hence the short exposures. And that was something else that I should mention, is you cannot take images of objects that are directly above you. Right, because the alignment doesn't work when it's that time. So thanks for that, Chris. And there was one more question from Mr. Warbis, I do believe, Steve, and that was, why do they term the starless object a galaxy rather than a galaxy-sized gas cloud?
There's a very good reason for that, Steve. I haven't got the faintest idea. I don't know, but it is being called a galaxy because it has, I don't know, the size and shape of a galaxy, perhaps. I honestly don't know the answer to that.
You know what your homework is this week, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there we are. I'd like to welcome the lovely Rachel. How are you, Rachel?
I'm good. Sorry, Blake. Astro meeting ran over. You know how it goes.
Yeah, of course. How's Isaac?
He's okay. I think he's watching downstairs with my mum. I'll be in and out, dunking him in the bath and such, but I am listening in the background.
Fantastic. Well, lovely to see you, Rachel. And as ever, and we're going to move on now to tonight's main feature. So, Mr. Keith Moseley is going to tell us, first of all, I believe, about 4 astro frauds. Do you want to do it in that order, Keith?
Yeah, we'll do it in that order.
Okay, then. Right. Take it away.
Right. Okay. Science is a self-regulating thing in that when anyone makes a discovery or even invents something, other scientists immediately leap in to check their work. Marking your own homework is not allowed. Nonetheless, over the centuries, a few people have got away with it. And in fact, I'm just going to draw your attention to these 4 people: Nicholas Reimers Bayer, Thomas Jefferson Jackson C., Spiridon Gotchevich, and Chevalier Dangos, all of whom at some point in their careers had done something naughty. Let's start with Bayer. He was an associate of Tycho Brahe in Denmark. However, he was more than happy to wander into Tycho Brahe's office and steal his work. And basically publish it as his own, such as this heliocentric solar system model, which you see on the right here, which of course bore more than a slight resemblance to Tycho's work.
Wow.
Well, bottom line is, of course, a crime does pay more often than not. Bayer's dishonesty was rewarded because he was appointed imperial mathematician to the Holy Roman Emperor. The job later, Kepler, who incidentally was also one of Tycho Brahe's associates.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. What an utter bounder, eh? I mean, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. They get worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at the tash on this guy.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's very late 19th, early 20th century moustache, isn't it? But
Yeah, very much.
yeah, or Guinness filter, as they sometimes call. Anyway, TJJC was employed by the Lowell Observatory and claimed to have seen exoplanets simply by eye. And by that, we mean naked eye, not even with a telescope. What's rather fascinating about him, and I can't get to the bottom of this, is he was actually not dismissed for his astronomical proclivities, but from secret excesses, which if continued at his age would have been incurable and likely to cause insanity or idiocy. In other words, stop doing that or you'll go blind. He was a serial plagiarizer of other people's books and ideas. And basically, he also was a recipient of a reward for his work. He ended up working with the US Navy for 30 years and reached an amazing age of 96.
Was he blind by that time?
No idea. Well, Spiridon Gopchevich, or Leobrener as he styled himself, as a Serbo-Austrian, obviously in the Austro-Hungarian Empire as was. He was a journalist and he married someone with money so he could fund a career in astronomy. Always a good trick if you can do it. And had a private observatory in the Adriatic. Anyway, he, to be fair to him, did produce credible drawings of planets, including Jupiter, but he went on to get a bit too ambitious, claiming to have discovered ice caps on Mercury, oceans on Venus, gaps in Saturn's rings, surface features on Uranus, and individual stars in the Andromeda Galaxy. Well, some of those things are, of course, true. There are indeed ice caps on Mercury, or at least inside some of the craters in the shade. And indeed, you can see individual stars in the Andromeda Galaxy, but not with the kind of telescopes that Spiridon was using, which were pretty tiny. And when he claimed 134 canals on Mars, even Lowell decided that this was going too far and dismissed his observations. He produced 52 publications before eventually the journals got wise to him and banned him from any further contributions.
Of course, you know what would happen to him these days? He'd end up with 2.5 million subscribers on YouTube.
Unfortunately, yes, I was going to say that is the trouble in this day and age, is you can get away with it, can't you? That, by the way, Spiridon's Adriatic Observatory you see there with the on top of the building, and the kind of telescopes we're talking about he was using actually no better than the one illustrated on the right there. So he really was making it up.
What a cad.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, we come to Chevalier d'Angos of France, who outperformed all the rest by managing to burn down his own observatory. Now, in fact, actually, you do wonder if he was trying to hide something and it was an act of arson, but we'll never know. Anyway, the thing is that he started claiming that he discovered comets. Now, as some of you will know, if you discover a comet, it gets named after you. So obviously they are a very desirable thing to find because you get your name immortalized in the sky. Anyway, he claimed one in 1784, which turned out not to be real. Another one in 93, which Messier dismissed as one of his nebulae or galaxies in his catalogue. And discovered another one in 93, which matched the orbital data of the 1672 comet, which had been found earlier. Funnily enough, though, what was really relevant here was that, in fact, the 1672 comet data was incorrect. He copied this, and of course, this is the danger. I used to find as a school teacher that if one of my pupils had copied someone else's homework and it had mistakes in it, you could find them out that way. And indeed, that's what he'd done. He also discovered, he claimed, the planet Vulcan. Now, as some of you will know, there was a theory that there was a planet inside the orbit of Mercury called Vulcan, very close to the sun. which accounted for the slightly out of sync behavior of Mercury in its orbit. Because when general relativity came along, we discovered there was a perfectly good explanation for Mercury's behavior, and the planet Vulcan does not exist. Anyway, he became so good at getting it wrong that, in fact, astronomical blunders were referred to as Angosiucides. Rather clever, really. Anyway, there we go.
He became famous for something then.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So there you have it.
And I'm sure they're not the only examples if we look hard enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, we're moving straight on. Thank you for that, Keith. And we'll move straight on now with your second presentation, Space Art and Illustration, an Incomplete Survey. There we are.
Well, those who've seen me do things before, and this was over a year ago, will know that more often than not, when I do a presentation, some maths appears in it and everyone freaks out. So I decided to do something that's a bit easier on the brain tonight and talk a little bit about some space art and illustration. Now, of course, it is an incomplete survey because there's so much of it out there. And at the end, why didn't he cover insert name here? Unfortunately, this is one of the problems with this, but we'll do a bit anyway. Well, let's start with this. Now, before I come to this very thing, of course, the earliest depictions of objects in space were lunar calendars carved into bone in the Stone Age, dating back about 30,000 years. But this shield-like object, about a foot across in old units, is alleged to have dated from the Bronze Age, but we don't really know where it actually came from. It appeared in Germany, having been looted from somewhere, and eventually the police picked it up. If it is Bronze Age, that makes it pretty old, but it might be later than that. It might be Iron Age. And what you see on this disc are what look like representations of the sun and the moon and stars, or at least that's what you think it means. I don't think there's any doubt about the crescent-shaped moon symbol on the right, but the other things could be anything, couldn't they, really?
Well, I mean, you've got that cluster of 7 there, which could be the Pleiades.
Yeah, it might be, yeah. And in fact, actually, that's an interesting point, because I'm going to show you some other things where you see little clusters of stars. Diagrams. The Greeks were very good at measuring things. And in fact, actually, of course, they knew that the Earth was a sphere, not flat. In fact, of course, one of the ways in which they measured the distance to the moon was to look at the Earth's curved shadow falling onto the moon, and did some geometry. The picture at the top there shows you that, and I won't go into details here because I do have a little bit of a talk about how that was done, which I'm going to save up. But that picture actually came from the Vatican Library, and it's actually a 10th century transcription of the original Greek version. But underneath there's a rather simpler diagram that shows you how in fact, they measured the distance to the sun. They figured that if you could measure the angle subtended between the moon when it's at its first quarter and the sun, you have a right angle triangle, and you can measure that very slender angle of the triangle. You could then determine the distance to the sun. And it almost worked, except the angle's so tiny it was almost impossible to measure it with the technology at the time. But nonetheless, they got Aristarchus got using this method a sort of distance to the sun in millions of miles, which is pretty impressive. These are Chinese star charts from the 7th century, and yes, you can see star clusters represented in these diagrams, although they're rather diagrammatic. These sort of strange circles and squares and zigzaggy formations may not be real things, but you can't fail to notice top right there that they've got part of the constellation of Orion quite clearly marked, and above it I suspect that the object above it near the top of the diagram is in fact Auriga, the charioteer. So these are early representations of stars, early star charts if you like. although they're only partially accurate, as you can see, and partially fanciful. Of course, also you see a lot of these things dating back centuries, diagrams representing what they believe the solar system to be like. Obviously, these are all geocentric models with the Earth at the center, and the planets and the sun represented in traveling around the Earth. But basically, of course, we now know, of course, that the Earth is not at the center of the solar system, but nonetheless, to them, it did seem that that was an explanation for what they were observing. Comets appear in ancient pictures, and indeed this embroidery or tapestry, as it's often referred to. On the left there, you've got the Bayer tapestry with Halley's Comet, which came round in early 1066. Of course, comets in Europe were regarded as a portent of doom or evil, which was certainly the case for Harold II, but not so much for William of Normandy. So it doesn't quite work in that respect. And then on the right here, we've got Giotto's Adoration of the Magi, which was painted at the beginning of the 14th century. And again, you see a comet in the background, which is believed again to be Halley's Comet. Now, sometimes you see pictures which are said to be medieval, but are not. This is one example. This is actually from a 19th century book. And the picture is called Atmosphere. We don't know the artist who produced this illustration, but the author of the book, Camille Flammarion, actually wrote a book on the atmosphere, as you can see there. Popular meteorology. It's not medieval, but it may, and indeed the book may have had an influence on Van Gogh, as we'll see in due course. But certainly the picture looks like it might have done. Now, we saw Chinese star charts earlier, but the first really accurate ones appeared at the turn of the 16th and 17th century. This is Johann Bayer's uranometria. A geometria is measuring the Earth. Uranometria is measuring the skies, which is what you see here. And one of the illustrations from that work is shown on the right there. That's Orion. And they really are absolutely beautiful, aren't they? They're produced with copper plate engravings and printed onto paper. And you can see two more here. That's Aquila on the left there, the eagle. Seems to have snatched a small child. And that's Cetus on the right there. So there were, in fact, in this work, something like about, I think, 51 star charts in all. 48 show the standard constellations that we're familiar with. And there are extra pages which showed new ones that had been recently discovered by Europeans voyaging into the southern hemisphere. Well, it's not just that we illustrate things in space, but obviously illustrate people looking at it. And on the left there, you've got a 18th century engraving showing a German astronomer using a transit telescope. Basically, if you look, it rotates in one axis only, and you wait for objects to pass in front of it rather than steer your telescope sideways towards them. And it's used for measuring the positions of stars in the sky in terms of when they pass through the field of the telescope and the angle they make with the horizontal. And that's basically what that's for. It does look, by the way, as if he hasn't finished the telescope. There's an awful lot of spare parts lying on the floor. But anyway, there we are. And on the right here, you have Joshua Reynolds and family. And this is a classic illustration of the Enlightened period, showing the family here with globes, books, and a telescope, showing that, and indeed a picture, a map rather, at the back there, showing how people were beginning to gather knowledge in a more systematic way than they had previously. By the way, that telescope that's sat on the table there is a sort of Cassegrainian style design with an open aperture at the front. The light travels down the tube, hits the concave mirror at the bottom, goes back to the top, hits a convex mirror held at the front, and then back down the tube again to the eyepiece at the back.
Wow.
And here's some more illustrations from works of the period. You can see here on the left there, pictures showing how the seasons occur, how eclipses occur. On the left there, you've got a solar eclipse, and on the right, there's a picture of how a lunar eclipse occurs. And then on the right-hand side here, you can see a book that's literally just covered in illustrations of equipment and, astronomical objects of one sort or another, including an illustration of the moon. You can see halfway down the left-hand page there. And you can make out a crater at the top of the moon, which is Tycho, the crater. And what you're seeing there is obviously it's at the top of the picture, because, of course, with a conventional telescope of the period, the images would be upside down.
Yeah.
A lot of astronomical books were printed with pictures of the moon and the planets upside down until relatively recently. Well, this is an interesting fellow. He's from the early 19th century, Caspar David Friedrich, and he was a German romantic landscape painter, generally considered the most important German artist of his generation, in fact. He's best known for his allegorical landscapes, which typically feature contemplative figures silhouetted against night skies. Well, you can see that sort of thing here in these pictures here. On the right, you have a figure sat next to what looks like a dolmen, a Stone Age grave. And on the left there, a couple of figures looking from a forested view towards the sky. And of course, like most artists, Friedrich often produced some multiple versions of his work. And in fact, actually, if we look at the next slide, you can see, oh, sorry, I've jumped past. I was going to say, he actually produced several versions of the left-hand picture there. This one shows a man and a woman, but there's also versions with two men. But what's interesting about these is, from the astronomer's point of view, is what's in the sky. And if we look at that more closely, you can see what it is. It's an early moon, if you like, a crescent moon, and you can see a very bright dot next to it, which is almost certainly Venus. And also you can see with the moon, you can see the effect of earth shine, light reflecting off the earth onto the back of the moon, onto the dark side of it, which reveals the entire disk of the moon. Now, these are really quite striking images, I think, and quite interesting. And the thing is that we do see that sort of thing. On the left-hand side of this slide here, you can see a genuine example of the moon and Venus, which I took early one morning. Admittedly, this is a moon that's almost at the end of its cycle rather than the beginning, but you get the idea. And what about flags? Well, if you look at these two flags on the right, they do have a striking resemblance to Friedrich's paintings and indeed my photograph. Well, the stars are five-pointed because they represent the five pillars of Islam, and indeed the origin of this star and crescent design dates back to the Ottoman Empire, in fact. But nonetheless, it's almost inescapable that this is an illustration of the moon and Venus as they would look in the night sky, up to a point anyway. Of course, the moon often features on mosques. On the minaret, you often see on the top an illustration of the moon. And although I haven't got a definitive sample to show you here, you often find that the angle of the moon as represented does indicate something about the latitude in which the mosque was built. At temperate latitudes, the moon generally looks like it does on the left. And if you're on the equator, it often looks something like the picture on the right there, setting vertically downwards.
Wow.
Anyway, astronomers and other people are often represented in cartoons. You can see here on the left, Mr. Babinet's been told there's a comet and he's looking in the wrong direction. And therein lies one of the problems with astronomy. If a telescope's not pointing in the right direction, you might miss something, which is why we have these synoptic survey telescopes now with short focal lengths and wide angle views so that they don't miss anything. But obviously the traditional telescope with its narrow field of view, in a sense like looking through a rolled up newspaper, unfortunately means you might miss something. And on the right here we have a political cartoon, in fact, and what you see in the picture there is a comet, and the comet is Napoleon. And Napoleon is flying towards the sun, which is represented by George III. And you can see John Bull is looking at the two with his telescope. And it says, aye, Master Comet, you may attempt your periheliums or your devilish heliums for all I care. But take the word of an old man, you'll never reach the sun, depend upon it. Anyway, there we are.
Lovely.
And of course, we still have cartoons about astronomers, as you can see on the left there, getting an all-round field of view. Please don't do this. And then on the right there, well, it's kind of rude, but it's quite funny as well. And of course, Larson. We all know that Larson does lots of science fiction, fact-based cartoons, like the one on the left with the aliens there. And of course, the rocket scientists. Everyone knows this one, this crooked rocket. We're not exactly rocket scientists. Well, believe it or not, some amateur rocket makers built one, which you see on the right there, and they launched it. I think it's fair to point out that if you look carefully at it, you'll notice that the tail fins are actually far more, sort of sensibly placed than on the original Larson cartoon. There we are, folks. Now, of course, Jules Verne, as we all know, wrote From the Earth to the Moon, a wonderful science fiction novel, and it was copiously illustrated. And you can see a couple of pictures from it. On the left there, you can see the capsule halfway to the moon. And if you're wondering what that object is on the right of the capsule, it is in fact a dog. And they've obviously let the dog out for a wee. And it clearly, in Jules Verne's universe, dogs can survive in a vacuum. So it didn't seem to suffer any other effects. And similarly, when they're on the moon, as you can see, no one's wearing a spacesuit, and I must have wondered how they got back, since their capsule is completely buried in the rocks, as you can see on the picture on the right there. But anyway, there we have it. What's kind of interesting, it is pure coincidence, is that the capsule depicted in the Jules Verne story has almost the same dimensions as the Apollo command and service module that was sent to the moon in the missions in the 60s and 70s. Well, we all know about Van Gogh, and of course, his Starry Night illustration, we can see on the left there. It's one of his most famous pictures, but probably it doesn't depict anything that's actually, it's not a direct copy of what he saw. It's more fanciful than that. And it's hard to make out what the object on the right is meant to be. It could be the moon, it could be the sun. It could be just Venus. We don't really know. But on the right there is another of his paintings, which is far more approachable from an astronomer's point of view. This is a view over the Rhone River and looking due north. And if you look, you can see upper middle of the picture quite clearly the asterism of the plough or Big Dipper. There it is. You can't miss it. And indeed, the star that's on its own over on the left-hand side is probably Arcturus. So he did paint pictures were not just. I've just been informed that it is the crescent moon in the Starry Night picture. Anyway, there we have it. But you can see the plough on the right picture there. Moving on into the 20th century, of course, science fiction took off in a big way in the 1920s and 30s. And of course, in the 50s and 60s, those of us who are old enough to remember, there was the Eagle comic, which was young boys reading, and of course depicted the wonderful Dan Dare, who was a space pilot, and of course his nemesis, the evil Mekon on the left there, who some people feel bears more than a slight resemblance to Dominic Cummings.
That's a starship on the left, on the right there, isn't it?
Yeah. Sadly, though, the illustrator, whose name I'm afraid has slipped my mind, he left the Eagle comic as an illustrator towards the end of his career, and essentially, like most people, I know Friedrich no exception, died more or less penniless.
Oh dear. Classic.
We have to move on to science fiction movies. These aren't, of course, art as such, but they are examples of what was around in the 50s. The one on the right is more of an eco-warrior style movie, warning us of the folly of our behaviour. But more typical of the period is the one on the left, The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. These movies came out in the era of the McCarthyite persecutions in America, where the Reds under the bed thing, that the communists were infiltrating all levels of society behind our backs. And of course, for aliens in these movies, you could read communists effectively. But the thing is, of course, movies like this need posters to advertise them. And again, we come across art and illustration. And here's a few examples. Mon from the late 1920s, Fritz Lang film. Interesting, by the way, because I read somewhere that Frau in Mond depicts the launch of the rocket with a countdown with 10, 9, 8, 7 and the launch. And it was the first ever time that had been done, long before anyone did it in real life. Moving on, of course, 2001 Space Odyssey. Everyone knows this film, which I remember seeing in the late 1960s, a really remarkable piece of work. You might be interested to know, by the way, that the spacecraft illustrating it were modelled from timber. They were actually carved out of wood, believe it or not, and painted up. Or at least some of them were. And in fact, actually, I did work briefly in the special effects industry, making spacey things, before, of course, the computers took over. It was a job I had for a relatively short period. I worked on stuff for the Moonraker film, the James Bond film, and also when I left, we were just in the process of producing a new R2-D2 for the second Star Wars film, because the R2-D2 robot in the first film was made from surplus parts from an Air Caravelle airliner and was apparently pretty heavy and hard to move around in. And Kenny Baker, the chap that was inside it, was struggling a bit. So a lightweight copy was needed. And then we have
the 2001 A Space Odyssey painting there.
Yes.
I have a T-shirt with exactly that design on it.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And of course, Alien, a Japanese version of the poster. I like Alien for one reason, and that is that the spacecraft do actually obey Newtonian physics. Unlike both of them, they certainly don't in Star Wars, as everyone knows, but they did in Alien. The only problem is Alien, in a way, to me, illustrates one of the problems with the science fiction movie industry. Is it is heavily conflated with horror. Whereas if you read science fiction books, there are not that many horror books, but they usually are when they're on film. And then, of course, we have Dune, which came out relatively recently. I'm waiting for the second part of that to emerge.
March the 1st.
Yeah, I gather it's delayed, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was delayed. It was due out the end of last year, but they've delayed it to March the 1st.
Oh, good. Well, I know it's coming. Fantastic. And then, of course, a couple of movies which, again, here's the illustrations that went with them. And these are both pretty intelligent films. Arrival, in which, as you know, translators are trying to figure out what aliens are trying to say to them. And then on the right, Contact. Well, not surprising it was intelligent, because Carl Sagan essentially wrote the book on which the script is based. It does contain an interesting twist about it, because Jodie Foster, the scientist, is skeptical of the religious views of her boyfriend, who stood behind her in the picture there, and says that science requires proof. But when she takes her journey into space, courtesy of some aliens, there's no evidence when she gets back. And forced onto the back foot in front of a congressional committee, saying, well, I really did go there, honestly. And they say, well, we got no evidence for it.
There is a shred of truth in the movie, and that is that there's a period of time roughly equivalent to the time that she would have spent missing on the tape.
Yes, nearly at the end, isn't it?
Yes.
One of the politicians, I forget, it was the Secretary of State, I can't remember. She said, there's nothing on the tape, but there's 48 hours of nothing on the tape, if I remember right. Or something like that, anyway. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And it was a damn good book, too. Really enjoyed that book.
Yeah. Moving on, of course, we have to talk about this man. By the way, I don't know how to pronounce his name, whether it's Bonestel or Bonestel, but does anyone know?
I think it's Bonestel, Keith.
Thank you. Yeah, well, he's one of the most copious and the most recognizable of 20th century illustrators of things in space, and did a lot of his work before the first spacecraft ever went into space. We see here on the left the surface of Mercury, which he painted in 1948. You can see some tiny astronauts, often dwarfed by the landscape in most of his pictures. You can see at the bottom left of the Mercury picture. If you're wondering why the sun looks a bit comet-like, it's because they've illustrated the dust that exists in the plane of the solar system, the zodiacal light, as it's called, in this picture. And on the right here, we have a picture of Mars viewed from Phobos. Again, there are some astronauts in the picture. Really fantastic when you consider when they were actually produced. And, I'm sorry, there's something on top of something else here, so I'm going to skip on. But Bonestel did paint pictures of the surface of Mars, sometimes with canals, sometimes as an arid desert, which of course it turned out to be. But I thought I'd show you this illustration by a chap called Morel. This is from a 1930s encyclopedia. And you can see here how carried away people were with the Martian Canal thing in this picture here. But there is something true about this picture. You see a polar sea. And in fact, we now know that at some time in the past, Mars indeed did have a polar ocean. There's a low, fairly relatively flat expanse near the North Pole of Mars with marginal features around it suggest that there was water there at some time. But canals, no. They were a figment of people's imagination. Here's Bonestel's pictures of Saturn from Titan and from Mimas. You can see here, I mean, if we look at the right-hand one first, this remarkable image showing the shadow of the rings cast onto Saturn's surface, something that you don't see from Earth, but you could infer if you thought about it three-dimensionally. And you can see a spot on the surface of Saturn there, which is the shadow of one of the other moons of Saturn cast onto the cloud decks of the planet there. And again, tiny astronauts you see in the foreground. And on the left there, this picture of Saturn from Titan, well, the sky isn't right, of course, because we now know that Titan's shrouded in an orange smog, but nonetheless, it is a remarkable illustration because, amongst other things, if you look at the left-hand side of Saturn, you can see how the sunlight reflecting off the rings is cast onto the cloud decks of the planet on its dark side. He's thought of all of these things. I think that's amazing, really.
It is. Oh, yeah.
And here we have pictures of Bonestels of the moon. They look very much like the real thing. They really do. If you've seen pictures taken by the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, you'll know that that's looks pretty similar. By the way, my lights in my room just flashed a bit, so don't be surprised if I disappear in a minute due to a pack up. And here I've put alongside it Mary McIntyre's picture of the middle of the crater Tycho, and she's copied that. Well, copy is not the right word, but she's used one of the LRO images to produce her work, and you can see how similar this illustration produced in the space age looks to Bonestel's picture, which he painted well before the space age started. It shows how good he was.
It shows how good Mary is as well.
It does, doesn't it? Yes, indeed. Absolutely. He depicted spaceships in his pictures. In 48, we have the sort of streamlined V2 shaped spacecraft, which wouldn't be needed to go to the moon as such unless you went through the atmosphere first of the Earth. And on the right, probably a more realistic depiction of a lunar landing spacecraft, which in space do not need to be streamlined in any way and can be designed in fairly skeletal fashion, as you see in this picture on the right. And he also produced sort of informatics, illustrations to educate. And you see on the left there some subsurface habitation modules on the moon. There are these lava tubes on the moon, which you can burrow down inside. And the advantage of putting your modules down there is, of course, you're shielded from the sun's radiation and cosmic radiation in general, which is a good idea if you don't want to develop cancer. On the right here, we have biodomes with plants growing in them. You can see, and in the distance there, a telescope, which of course on the moon would work beautifully without an atmosphere to spoil things. It does, however, look a bit like a telescope that you would look through the back of, which wouldn't be a very practical thing to do on the moon. You would wire it up with a camera. That would be the sensible thing. Thinking of those biodomes, of course, well, no, I'll leave that. But Bonestel also did illustrations of other things. You can see their buildings, bridges. You know, he was pretty prolific illustrator and artist, and produced a few film posters, as you can see on the top right there. And there's another one of his lunar illustrations at the bottom. Fantastic, really, really fantastic. And he even ventured out into interstellar space and depicted planetary views from exoplanets orbiting other stars. On the right-hand side there, you have a planet that is orbiting a rapidly rotating star, which has, as a result of it, turned into an oblate spheroid. In fact, the star Altair in Aquila is probably this shape, we think. In fact, actually, using optical interferometers, we now know it really is that shape, shaped like an M&M.
Right.
The other pictures show, binary stars, and of course the effect they would have, you get double shadows. You see, if you look on the left-hand picture there, you can see twin shadows produced by the two stars. By the way, he's marked in an orbit for one of them, which of course you wouldn't see, but you get the idea. And of course, imitations of it's a serious form of flattery. And of course, binary star planets. Well, there we go. There's one in Star Wars, Tatooine, or Tunisia in real life.
We've only known somewhat recently that planets could maintain stable orbits around a binary star system. So that's
true. Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Yeah, we have found a few now, haven't we? A few of the Kepler objects, I believe, are such things.
Perhaps that wasn't an orbit he was depicting inaccurately. Perhaps it was meant to be a ring around the planet.
Well, here's the thing, right? There's something interesting about that. It could be a ring around the planet, but it's a very oblate spheroid planet, as you can see, suggesting it's either a planet spinning extremely quickly or it's a stellar object. By the way, this picture is not distorted. They really are flattened in the original picture. I don't know is the answer, really. But one thing did occur to me. If it's meant to illustrate an orbit, and I don't know now, because you can actually see a line running in front of that object, can't you?
Yeah.
The white object's got a line in front of it. So you may be right. Maybe you're meant to be a ring. I don't know. So it's hard to say, isn't it? But
Yeah, it is.
yeah. Anyway, but if it was an orbital pattern, then that star would actually plunge through the atmosphere of the other star.
Yeah.
And we do know of examples of that in real life. There are examples. There's one binary pair where one star is permanently ploughing around inside the upper atmosphere of the other one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it's quite an extraordinary thing, really. Anyway, well, I'll skip on. And, well, here's an artist who really did go into space, Alan Bean, who was on the Apollo 12 mission. Produced images, paintings, I should say, of astronauts on the moon. And one of his distinctive trademarks was the textured surfaces of his paintings had boot prints on them, as you can see from the lunar astronauts' boots. And they're really quite remarkable in appearance, really. Unfortunately, Alan died about 6 years ago. And indeed, we're running out of Apollo astronauts now, but not many of them are left. Which just goes to show how tardy we have been in going back to the moon, doesn't it, really? These pictures illustrate the sort of thing that he did. And in fact, there's some more of his pictures here. Here you see one astronaut pulling another one up. Falling over was something that happened quite a lot on the moon, if you watch the footage. But with 1/6 gravity, it was not likely to cause serious harm. And these pictures here on the right, we have the Apollo 13 problem with the service module illustrated here. And of course, as you know, the one of the fuel cell tanks exploded, and you can see the fragments are surrounding the spaceship. And what most people don't think of when they're on Earth is they think of fragments flying off something and then falling behind. But with no drag in space, the fragments just sail along with you. So a permanent cloud of debris that goes with you everywhere you go, which to some extent he has illustrated in this picture.
Yeah.
On the left there, he's it's a bit of a self-portrait for him because he's one of the astronauts in the picture there. Apollo 12 landed very close to an unmanned space probe called Surveyor 3, and the two astronauts went to have a look at it. And I think they cut the camera off, if I remember right, and brought it back. I have some recollection of that.
Yeah, I seem to remember that as well. Yeah.
And I've collection as well that they found a rhinovirus on one of the cameras that had been sneezed on by somebody before it was launched into space. Anyway, there we are. By the way, somebody commented this week about the accuracy of lunar landings these days, but these guys managed to put their lunar module down within walking distance of another space ship back in 1969.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not such a new thing, is it, really?
Without the computing power we got today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they had 3 computers on board the Apollo missions, 1 in the command module and 2 in the lunar landing module, and they only had 32K of memory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the memory was ferrite core memory. Anyway, Finally, I'm going to finish off by talking a little bit about digital art, and I'm just going to stick to one thing, Teragen. The reason I mentioned Teragen is that actually you can download a sort of atrophied version of it, if you like, to play around with yourself. So if anybody's noted the name, go and look it up, and you can download a version of the program and try making some of the landscapes that it's possible to make with Teragen. Now,
I use Teragen.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Great fun to play around with. Yeah, I used to use. Did you ever use Vista Pro?
No, I haven't. No, is that
It
good?
was sort of the low res precursor to Teragen, different company. And I spent hours creating landscapes, but you can then animate and fly through them, and it was enormous fun.
Well, what you're seeing in these pictures that are following are in fact pictures that are made using Teragen to produce the landscapes, if you like, and then obviously a bit of illustration work added to them to produce the sort of sky and space parts. Well, when I say not the sky, actually the sky can produce with Teragen too. But you get the idea in this picture here, and we've got a sort of Saturn-like planet with an Earth-type moon orbiting around it. And in this picture here, we can see a planet which is very volcanically active, and obviously lightning strikes due to the dust created in the volcanic eruptions. And in this picture here, I feel this actually illustrates what Teragen does most, actually. It's quite possible to produce almost everything in that picture just using Teragen alone. It does amazing skies and amazing landscapes as well.
It is actually used in the motion picture industry to generate landscapes.
Hey, that, yes, and of course it is used, as you rightly say, for backgrounds in movies. The full-throated version can. Obviously, the simplified version I played around with doesn't do stuff quite as good as this, but no. you can do a remarkable number of things. You can change the angle of the sun, change the type of clouds, change whether the water is choppy or still. You can do all these things by pressing buttons and mucking around with it. It's really quite fun. So this sort of fanciful dirigible flying over this fanciful landscape is all inside a computer, basically. Here's another one. And by the way, this illustrates where space artists can get a bit carried away. There is absolutely no way that a planet would be as tranquil as the one in the foreground if it was that close to that gigantic planet in the background. The tidal forces would be ripping everything to pieces, and it would be a hell to
be
live
like
on.
Io.
Like Io, exactly. So there you go. But anyway, it's kind of fun. And we're nearly there. There we go. That's the last one I'm going to show you tonight. The Teragen desert landscape, and obviously a spiral galaxy above it. As I say, it's incomplete. It's just a few things just thrown about, but I hope you've enjoyed having a look at them. Okay, thanks.
Right, thank you very much, Keith. Most interesting.
Go through the chat, Andy. There's some points have just been made in the chat about what Keith's been talking about. We've got Steve Warbis said the band on the edge of the disc, which the Nebra sky disc, was the solstice angle apparently.
Oh, right, okay,
and also the Nebra sky disc used gold from Cornwall.
Wow.
Wow.
Anne asked about putting up a QR code again. I'm not sure which one that was. Brilliant presentation, Keith. And going back to Van Gogh, as it said, the object on the right is the crescent moon. And also Steve Warbis said, he said the swirl in Starry Night is supposed to be influenced by Lord Ross's illustration of M51, the Whirlpool Galaxy from Burr Castle.
Oh, right.
He's right, and I forgot actually. I did read that somewhere, and I forgot. Yeah, he's right.
Yeah. Alan Ledbury, he said, in Frau in Monde, they wore spacesuits for the first time as well.
Right.
So you had the countdown. He also points out that on the ship was painted black on one side and white on the other side to control temperature in barbecue mode, as he said.
Spacecraft, to stop it heating, yeah.
With reference to Contact, Kevin Earp said the book is much better. Well, that 9 times out of 10, that is true. And of course,
so the book must be really good.
Well, the book was written by Carl Sagan, and it's loosely based on the life of Jill Tarter from SETI, who's still with us today. So, but it's Steve Warby, it's excellent. Keith, thank you. Sandra, thank you, excellent. Daydream says thank you, and Gerard, thank you, Keith, for a fascinating presentation. So it's been well received. Well done, Keith. Well done.
Okay. Thanks very much, folks. Thank you.
We've had a request to put the QR code up again, so I'll just do that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you very much. Well, Keith, that was fantastic. What can I say? What we'll do with that, viewers, as usual, I'll edit that into a video on its own, and that will be a Space Bites video available on the channel. I'll probably do it before the weekend. So that'll be looping on the Space Oddities channel next week. So hopefully we get some more views on that, because it was well worth viewing. And thank you very much. One artist, Keith, who let's just get rid of that for you. One artist whose work I absolutely love is David Hardy, who's another fantastic space art artist.
He also worked for us with Hawkwind. He did a couple of albums for Hawkwind as well.
That's right. He did the reverse of the sleeve for Hall of the Mountain Grill.
Yeah, and he did some work on Warrior on the Edge of Time.
That's right.
And he worked on The Sky at Night a few times as well.
Yeah, and like Chesley Bonestall, an amazing artist.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing. And David A. Hardy has got a Facebook page, and I chat quite often with him.
Yeah.
So if you want to chat with David, go to Facebook. Look him up on Facebook, David A. Hardy. He's an amazing artist, and some of you will remember a science fiction magazine from the 1970s called Science Fiction Monthly. One of the main attractions of which was that they used to give you A3 sized posters of space art that by the time they finished almost completely adorned all my bedroom walls, and they featured a lot of art by David Hardy, and those were the days. Anyway, right, well, thank you to everybody on the panel. Thank you to Daz, to Pete, lovely to see you back, Pete. Thank you to Roger. Thanks for being here, Lou. Thanks to Michael. And, of course, thanks to Keith for tonight's presentation.
Thank you, Keith. Well done.
Next week on Space Oddities, we will be delighted to welcome our special guest, Dr. Niall Smith, who will be talking about the intriguing subject of bioforming, and that is seeding alien planets with life from Earth. So we shall look forward to hearing from Niall next week on Space Oddities, and we hope you'll join us to welcome him and listen to what he's got to say, because he's a most engrossing presenter. There we are. I mean, I think we'll draw things to a close for this evening. I'd just like to remind you, if you would be so good to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on the video after it hits the channel on Space Oddities, that would be fantastic, because it really does help us get noticed by YouTube and helps hopefully get us a wider audience, which we think we deserve, but so you'll be the judge of that. Alan says, saw David Hardy's first exhibition at Birmingham Art Gallery. Really, Alan? Oh, fantastic. I would have loved to have seen that, because he is a favourite of mine. But there we are. So if you could do that, don't forget the Space Oddities merchandise, details of which you'll find in the description of the video. And so from all of us at Space Oddities, we'd like to wish you a peaceful week with all that bad weather you've got coming into the UK at the moment. I was reading earlier today that you've got a cold air current from, of all places, Greenland heading into the UK next week, which indicates some really heavy snow. So everybody stay safe, stay warm.
Short weather.
Yeah, and we're not going to say keep looking up because it looks as if there'll be nothing to look up to for the foreseeable future. But if you do get any clear spots, get out there and take some photos and send them to us. If you'd like to feature in our viewers gallery, email your images to spaceodditieslive@gmail.com. 1 image per email, please. Entitle your email gallery entry or something like that so we can find them and they don't get lost. And thanks to Roger for putting together such a huge gallery this week. Been knocked out as always by the gallery. Anyway,
we need one from Lou.
Yeah, that's right. He needs to put his money where his observatory is.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's speechless.
Yes, I actually sent 2 in that haven't been shown, so we'll see if we can dig those up.
Oh, Roger, have you been throwing out Lou's images by any chance?
The jury is out.
Anyway, join us next week for Dr. Niall Smith and bioforming. Until then, we would like to wish you a very happy, peaceful, and safe week. Stay warm. And from all of us at Space Oddities, a very good evening to you. And thank you so much, viewers, for being here. We really do appreciate it. Yeah. So until next week.
Stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.